Hello everyone and welcome to Evie's Pets. Here on my channel I try to help people become better pet owners so that they can take better care of their pets. In today's video I'm going to show you what it's really like to move your cat onto a raw food diet, and if you haven't heard of a raw food diet before I will explain it in a moment, but basically I'm going to be showing you all the preparation that goes into it and how to make a nutritionally balanced diet for your cat to make sure they live a long and happy life and have the best diet you can possibly provide for them. So why raw and what is it? I'm going to start with what is raw because I think a lot of people just don't really know about it, and it's not very common, but it's definitely becoming more common as the pet food gets worse on the market and also more expensive. So today I'm just going to kind of cover what raw food is very briefly. Hopefully eventually I'll be able to do a better video on what it is, and I'll be able to learn more and give you more information on it. But to start, I just wanted to kind of explain what it is. So raw food is a food that closely mimics a prey animal's body, and so it's the closest thing you can feed to what cat would eat in the wild, and so it's also the best food you could provide for your cat as long as it's nutritionally balanced. And I'll get more into balancing your cat food later in the video, but right now I just really want to talk about why you would feed raw, because a lot of people would just assume, raw is going to carry bacteria and it's going to be hard to prepare. It's going to be expensive feeding your cat raw meat every day with all those organs and things. And so I want to talk a little bit more about that and how it could actually be cheaper and better for your cat than feeding traditional cat food like dry kibble and canned food. Why would you feed raw food? Well, for one, the food is getting worse all the time, and it kind of scary to think about all the things that are in cat food now that cause so many different health problems, and I could go on and on about all the problems with dry and canned and commercial foods, but for the sake of the video and making it not too long so that you guys can get through it, I'm not going to go into it in this video. Maybe in a later video I'll talk more about it, but definitely the foods are getting worse, and so if you care about what your cat eats like I do, then you're going to probably want to control what goes into your cat's food. And the best way to do it is to make your own food. So there is commercial raw foods, but I definitely recommend making your own. It will be a lot cheaper, and you can also control exactly what goes into it. And that's definitely why I'm making raw food for my cat now, because seeing all the brands and how they've just gone so downhill, I want to be able to control what's in my cat's diet. Also, a couple of pros about raw food is that it's easier to digest for cats because it's more suitable for them. Many cat foods now have grains and vegetables that aren't appropriate for cats and are also hard to digest for them. While they may sound tasty and nutritious to us, most cats can't actually get the nutrition they need out of them, and so it actually makes the food almost unbalanced and not as healthy as it may look on the packaging, and not provide all the health benefits that it's saying it will. After hearing all those bad things about commercial foods, you're probably thinking, why have I never heard of raw food? Why don't more people feed it? If it's this easy and this cheap, then why is it so hard to find more about it? This is probably because it is going to be very good for your cat if it's nutritionally balanced, which means that you need to balance it properly and make sure your cat has all the nutrients they need, because making a raw meal at home is going to be take a little more work and thought that goes into it. So that's why I'm making this video, is to show you what goes into preparing your raw food and switching your cat to raw. And that's really the point of this video. So I hope I can give you a good look at what it takes to feed raw and the benefits, and also why it's so worth feeding raw and why it's worth all the research, all the work, and all the preparation. All that said, I'm going to go ahead and get started with all the preparations that I need to do. I need to set up an area for him to eat. I also need to make his food, and I need to transition him to his food. So let's get started. feeding raw food, it's definitely not as simple as just throwing some dry food into a bowl, and you need to keep everything sanitary because you are dealing with raw meat. So here's a couple of things I'd suggest you have before you start raw feeding. I actually already had these things for feeding Milo already, so I didn't have to get any of this, but if you don't have it, I definitely recommend getting some of this. So I found these really nice mats at the dollar store, I think maybe a year back, and this is going to be useful because when you're feeding raw, sometimes, cats will drag things around, drop things, and sometimes they'll just fall out of their mouth. And so it's nice to have something like this. I'm actually going to use a side with no paw prints, so I can easily come and wipe it off after every meal to keep everything sanitary. I'm also going to be using metal bowls because you don't want to be using plastic because it can get scratched up and bacteria can grow if you're not being careful when you're washing them. So I prefer metal or glass. So right now I have some stainless steel bowls and they're the perfect size for feeding. So I've got 4 of them here and I'm going to be using these. I also suggest having something to clean your dishes with and also a serving spoon. Make sure neither of these you use for yourself because they are probably going to be used on things that have raw meat in them. So I definitely recommend getting your own cat sponge for raw feeding and probably a spoon if you're going to be portioning things out. I'm going to go ahead and set this stuff all up. Probably make sure that if you're going to feed your cat raw, you're feeding them on tile or hardwood floors. So for the purpose of the video, I just had things in here, but I'm actually going to be feeding him on tile in a different room in the house. And also I'm going to be close by to a kitchen sink so that I can get all my washing and everything clean so that everything stays sanitary. Earlier this morning, I went out and bought all my ingredients from my local grocery store, and like I said in the beginning of the video, this is my own recipe, and I am not a cat nutritionist or a vet, so if you would like to use this recipe, I will link it down in the description box below, but I'm definitely going to say use it at your own risk because since I am not a vet or nutritionist, I still have a lot to learn and I don't really know for sure if this is complete and balanced. I know that this is definitely not going to hurt your cat, but if you're feeding this long term, I definitely would do some research for yourself and for what special needs your cat needs. So it's kind of use this recipe at your own risk, but I will leave it down in the description below. Probably wondering why I made my own recipe. There's lots of recipes out there created by vets to suit your cat's needs that are nutritionally balanced. Why I went with my own recipes is because I couldn't really find any that fit my own needs. I wanted everything to come from my local grocery store. I didn't want to have to kind of look around and forage around for things too much. I wanted to be able to get everything locally. And I also can't feed bones right now because I don't have a grinder strong enough. So hopefully one day I'll be able to feed bones, raw meaty bones. But right now I can't, and that is a big part of a cat's diet, and there wasn't many recipes out there that substituted with bone meal. You can see behind me. So I wanted to make my own recipe, and so here it is. I also didn't want to buy a ton of different vitamins to go along with it. I wanted everything to come from whole foods, and so other than the bone meal, everything comes from whole meat or some other kind of animal product. For this recipe, you'll also need a cutting board and a big bowl, and you'll also need a good sharp knife for cutting up your meat. I am going to use a blender to kind of get everything a little finer, but like I said before, this is a bone out recipe because I don't have a grinder strong enough for bones, and so if you don't have a grinder, of course you can just chop it up finely and you'll be fine like that. I'm going to start by cutting up the pork, the chicken gizzards and hearts, and my liver and also my oysters. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut all that up, and then I'm going to put it in a bowl. everything cut up in the bowl, and I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients and then put this in the blender to kind of grind it up better. If you're using canned salmon like I am, it's probably going to have quite a bit of salt in it, and if you can, try to avoid the salt completely and get one that is not salted. But if you really cannot find salmon without salt, then the best thing you can do is put it in a strainer and rinse it really good with some cold water, and that will help get rid of any excess salt. And also, don't feed all the briny water because that's just full of salt. I just rinsed out my salmon, and you can see that it's quite big pieces and it's got some bones in it, and it's perfectly safe to feed everything. Just make sure that the bones aren't like huge when you feed them. If you are going to cut it up, maybe just take the bones out. They really don't have much nutrition in them because they're so small, so if you don't want to keep them, you don't have to. I got everything in the bowl. I put the eggs in, and I also added the bone meal. I also put in some of the egg's membrane, which actually has a lot of vitamins in it. And I also only put the egg yolks because the egg whites have a vitamin in them that can bind other vitamins together. And so too much egg yolk might not be beneficial for your cat, so I prefer just to use the egg yolks. So all I'm going to do now is put it in my high-speed blender and blend it up real good. Just finished grinding it all down. It actually did a really good job. I didn't think it would come out this finely ground. So then all I'm going to do now is go ahead and weigh it out on the scale and then put it in some ice cube trays that I have, and then I can freeze it. Measuring this all out, and it should last him 20 to 30 days, and I'll just leave one in the fridge when I feed him, and then by the next feeding time it should be thawed out enough for him to eat. So yeah, I think it came out really good, and I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the freezer, and you can keep this in the freezer for like 1 to 2 months. Probably don't keep it in there very long because of course it's been out in the air for a while already. Milo patiently waiting for his food, so I'm just gonna see if he likes it, and it's definitely a success. He loves it, so that is really good, and I'll definitely transition to him slowly as a meal. Right now it's just a little treat, but definitely I will just start adding little by little to his food, and he should probably transition to it really fast. I hope this video showed you how much work it is to raw feed your cat, but how much it is worth it. It's really nice to see at the end of the day how much he likes it, and it's definitely going to be a really good food for him. So I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I hope this encourages you to start raw feeding your cat too. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!